Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation's LNTV. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. Now, amid all the impeachment drama last week, there was some significant legislation moved through Congress. Here to talk about it is Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor and cannabis legislation expert, Mr. Scott DeCosenza. Welcome, Scott.
Cheers, Mark.
So, Scott, what is the legislation and where is it now?
I have the name here so that I can recite it. It's the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act of 2019. And what it does chiefly, Mark, is remove marijuana from the Controlled Substances Act list of drugs that are controlled by that act, to wit, removing the criminal penalties, federal criminal penalties for marijuana. It was passed out of the House House Committee on the Judiciary last week and referred to the full House for consideration.
Okay, so besides the major changes here in the Controlled Substance Act, what does it actually do?
Well, there is that main thing, which is to remove federal marijuana criminal penalties. The other things that it does is it allows for people that are currently serving sentences, either custodial sentences in the sense that they're in federal prison for a marijuana crime, or, and this applies to many more people, they're on some kind of other involvement with the criminal justice process, whether it's a parole or some other thing, and it expunges that, or rather provides the vehicle for which those things can be expunged. It also directs courts, Mark, in the future to go back through the old cases where the people are no longer, in prison or anything like that, and expunge those records as well. A couple more points. It adds and this is the worst part about it, they just can't leave well enough alone. It adds a 5% tax to marijuana goods to fund a whole slew of, government wishes and wants. And then finally, Mark, it removes some of the penalties that people with marijuana convictions have in many federal government things, some federal contracting, military, and student loans, for instance, all are affected by marijuana convictions. This wipes that away.
There are three short questions that occur to me when you were just speaking about that. The first one being, obviously, this is removing the punishments retroactively here. Will that leave the government, the federal government, open to lawsuits? Just a quick fire answer will do.
Sure, but they're not going to be successful.
Okay. Number two, now that it is no longer a federally prohibited substance, it's controlled substance, sorry. Does that mean that there must be new legislation in terms of, for example, operating a motor vehicle whilst under the influence? Will it have the same sort of things as alcohol does?
All that is handled at the state level in the states, Mark. So there's no need for federal legislation with regard to that.
Which brings me to my third one. Does this mean that states that have all but decriminalized marijuana anyway, will they have to provide new levels of legislation based on the federal decision?
Oh, no. Finally, Mark, the people who live and work in those states can do so legally under federal law. That's the big change here. Every single person who either works for or purchases marijuana in a state where it is state legal is committing a federal crime every time they do it right now under our laws. Unless and until that changes, that's the status.
Well, that's what's going to happen next, isn't it? So assuming it makes it through the House, and I suspect it will, but is it going to die in the Senate, in your opinion?
Well, it wasn't, I've heard the term bipartisan described to this legislation. I think there were 2 Republicans who voted yes and 2 Democrats who abstained. So not exactly the heart of bipartisan in terms of, the support. But if you take those numbers and transpose them to the Senate, okay, the numbers are so tight that means it will pass. Again, this presumes, though, I think, Mark, that Mitch McConnell even allows it to come up for a vote. And I think that actually is the tougher hurdle rather than passage by itself. There's another political complication, which is that Donald Trump going into re-election may see this as a winner, and then have Mitch McConnell put it up for that vote. Mitch McConnell also is up for re-election in 2020 as well. Another political monkey wrench in the soup.
Well, Scott, thank you very much for the analysis. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Mark.
Hi folks, Lisa K. Donner here, editor-in-chief of LibertyNation.com. We hope you enjoyed watching this video, maybe even learned a thing or two. If so, please take a moment and subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there in the corner. Thanks so much.